Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Your Pleasure Incorporated into Daily Living. I am your host, Ellen Nicholas Rathbone, sensuality consultant, life coach, and this is another episode of What Love Is. So, we've already talked about romantic love and maternal love. And now, today, we're going to talk about fatherly love, which is a little different than motherly love, but just as important. So, since I am not a father, I have invited a father who is very, very proud of the fact that he's a father and takes that role very seriously. He's been a guest on my show before. His name is Mike Horvath, and we're going to talk about this, and we're going to get like a nice understanding of what is the difference between motherly love and fatherly love and love of God and love of self, etc. So without any further ado, let me bring my guest on, and there he is. Hi, Mike.
How y'all doing? Hey, how are
All
you?
right, doing all right, doing all right. It's good to
Awesome.
see you.
Great to see you.
Yes. So, Mike, I am the mother of three sons,
Hmm?
and I love them
God
dearly.
bless.
And you are the father of
I have two girls and then a son on the way.
on the way. Okay.
Hmm.
And when you think about what your role as father is,
Hmm.
what would you say is the most important thing that your role as father would be?
I think the most important role as a father, in my eyes, would be to set the standard and set the right example for the children to follow, whether they're daughters, sons, or anything like that. But just be that role model, that somebody they can look up to, somebody they can look to, kind of be like when they get older. And also, like if my daughters, I would want them to kind of geared towards somebody more like myself, hardworking, like to think of it myself like that as well. But I don't want to end up some idiot, so I want to set the standard of how they should be treated, and they don't deserve anything but the best.
Exactly, exactly. So a father's love is, well, according to Eric Fromm, it's almost
Mhm.
a little conditional, though. The
Okay.
archetype for fatherly love is a little conditional. Like a mother loves the infant, supposedly, and that's a perfect
Mhm.
mother, not all mothers, okay?
Mhm.
Um, loves the growing child inside of her. Fathers don't have a growing child inside of them, and they're not invested that much. But when that baby is born, the first few years it's about the mother, but then when that
Mhm.
child is starting to socialize, and
Mhm.
when that child is starting to reach for goals, I
Mhm.
think that's where fatherly love is extremely important, because you want to know that your children are going to aspire
Mhm.
to their potential. You know,
Sure.
mothers,
Uh-huh.
a mother will say, well, I love my children regardless of what they do. But I think fathers want more for their children. They don't want them to
Mhm.
settle. So what do you think about that? Do you agree
I agree
or
to that to an
disagree?
extent. I
Okay,
agree
go
to that to
ahead.
an extent.
All
So
right.
what I mean by that is I've been extremely involved in my children's lives since day one.
Okay.
So I've always been involved with my kids, and I've always loved being around them. And I've been obsessed with them since the moment my oldest daughter grabbed my finger 30 seconds after she was born, and I was hooked since then. Like those girls can do whatever they want, and they'll get away with murder with me. I try to be the more stern one when it comes to disciplinary and everything like that. Like we don't mess around. If I say, "Hey, girls, snap my fingers," will stop. They're very well behaved, and that's the best thing for me is that they're so well behaved. But of course, I don't want them to ever settle or anything like that. I want them to absolutely reach for the stars and beyond, as cliche and as stupid as that sounds. But I do agree with the fact that the mother definitely, as soon as she finds out she's pregnant, she's hooked and in love unconditionally. But I definitely have that unconditional love for my children since the second I touched my oldest daughter. I've been obsessed with kids since I was a young kid. Like I've always wanted to be a young father, and I would literally do anything for those kids. Uh, Ryan Reynolds said the best. He said, "I thought I loved my wife, and I would do anything for my wife until I had my daughter, and I would use my wife as a human shield to protect that baby." So I've always kind of like thought
Oh,
about
good to
that, and
know.
I agree. I would absolutely use anybody's human shield to protect my kids. again, yeah, I want them to reach their stars, and I've been obsessed with my kids. I think a lot of fathers would probably agree with me when it came to stuff like that. And I kind of, it brings in how I was raised. I was a baseball player my whole life, but my dad never pushed me to be a baseball player. He always said to me, Mike, I don't care if you're wearing Yankee pinstripes or garbage man uniform, I'll always love you. You're always my son.
Right.
And so as well, I don't know why.
So your
Hey,
father's
Mitch.
your father encouraged you, which I think is really a parental and a paternal role,
Absolutely.
but he didn't pressure you. He just saw your potential and he encouraged you. So that's part of the fatherly love, is
Mm-hmm.
to support and be supportive in what the child wants to do. All right,
Absolutely.
and to protect, so
Yeah,
that
definitely. Definitely.
when you're young and you need someone to protect you, I mean, it's the dad that's going to do that, whether
Yep.
it's in relationships or financially or whatever. The father is there to
Yeah, my rule for my daughters is no dating until they're married.
That's not going to fly. Sorry, buddy. It's
If I
also,
raise them the right way, they'll pick a good guy. I hope so, at least.
well, the thing
Or
is,
gal, whatever they
I
want to do.
hear tell
Mm-hmm.
that the sons look for a woman that is very much like their mother,
I can
and
agree.
the daughters look for someone who is very much like their father. So that's a very tricky role that we as parents play,
Mm-hmm.
because we have to live our best version of that
It's
role.
hard. Very hard.
You cannot BS your way in
Mm-hmm.
this. You've got to be, you
They
can't
see right through it.
do as I say, not as I do,
Exactly. They
because
see right through that.
it's they absolutely see right through it,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to know that the foundation that they are putting their whole life on, and
Yep.
asking dad, listen, is this best for me,
Mm-hmm.
that I should go with this man who, he's kind to me, but he lies a lot, or he steals, right? You want to be the very, very best version, so your daughters have an excellent
Mm-hmm.
example of what kind of man they want in their life. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
And then when my son comes along, hopefully he acts like the man that I strive to be every day, and treats people and women the way that I would want them to be treated.
Right.
That goes exactly what you said.
Right.
That's
I know that
perfect.
you're a very hardworking fellow. I see
Try to
you
be.
all the time, and you're always stepping up, and you're always doing what needs to be done. And, no excuses. And
Mm-hmm.
that's great, because so many people make a million excuses about why they're
Oh yeah.
not doing what they should be doing, or they
Yep.
agreed to do, or whatever. So that is another excellent example of what a good father is, that he is good to his word. Okay. If he
That's the
says
most
he's going
important.
to do it, he's going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
one way or the other. He's going to do his best. He's not just going to pretend that he's going to do it, or say he's going to do it and then hope
Right.
everybody forgets.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that I think that fathers are really needed for, I mean, other than
Mm-hmm.
protection and guidance, they're needed for inspiration. To You see a light in your children, you see their potential,
Mm-hmm.
they're growing into people, and you see that they each have their own unique personality, and you
They
can
do.
see what their strengths are. Not that you would
Mm-hmm.
push them, but you would say, when you sing, or when you
Mm-hmm.
dance, or when you draw, or whatever it is, the activity that they're doing, that you inspire them to get to the next level, to
Yep.
take that
Oh yeah.
challenge on. And I think that's a fatherly influence. I mean, not saying that mothers don't do it, but
Mm-hmm.
mothers are just about nurturance
For
and
sure. Mm-hmm.
wanting the best for their children, but they're not necessarily pushing so much. But fathers, they do push. And I
I've
think it's
noticed.
necessary, because if you're coddled all your life, then you're not striving for
We have that
anything.
problem in society today, big time.
Yeah, I
I think
really,
our society
there's
has
a,
a big problem with lack of, I don't want to say lack of masculinity. I guess that's just a bad phrase to use, but it's kind of what comes to mind first. It's almost like a leading, like set an example, like you said earlier, not saying a mother can't do that by any means, but it's nice to have that I don't want to say strong because women are strong too. Don't worry. So it's just like kind of like you said, set an example and be what you say, man your word, um, and it just goes back to how you were raised, and a lot of that is falling out, I think, because of the lack of stern, hard, like go get it, no bullshit. They emulate what you do from a very young age because children learn by watching so
Absolutely.
much. They
True
watch you, watch
example.
you, watch you before they even learn to speak. And when they do learn
Exactly.
to speak, they're already picking up on actions, habits, and stuff like that. My oldest daughter, Kristen, is one of the smartest little kids I've ever met in my life. It's unbelievable. She can count to 100. She's 5 years old. She knows all her ABCs. I'm still struggling to get to 10, so she's doing a good job. But it's the thing she does and notices and says, it's just, I'm like, what the hell? How'd you do that? And Paige is hysterical, very intuitive, creative. So kind of like you push them without pushing them. If you will, like
Yes.
you said, you kind of say like, "Wow, when you sing, I love that," or whatever it is, and they kind of go, "Oh, okay." So like things I do with my daughters are, "Hey, Kristen, I love when you do this. Like, I love your art. It's very good. Like, can you draw me into the picture or something like that?"
Right.
I have pictures hanging all over my office, all over my walls in my apartment. They're covered with my kids' pictures. So everything that they do, I kind of overhype it a little bit,
Yeah.
because I want them to think like when they do something good and they're rewarded for doing something good, I overhype how excited I am because I am very excited, but I overhype it. So I go, wow, Dad is really excited. Maybe if I continue doing this good thing, Dad will continue to keep getting this excited and they'll keep striving to be better and better and better.
Right.
Again, my oldest daughter, Kristen, at her school, they have this award called Super Bee. That means their mascot's a bee. So that means she did the best and she was most helpful and participated the most and everything like that. She got it twice in 2 weeks. So the
Nice.
first time she got it, I freaked out. I danced in the middle of the courtyard in front of all her friends. I went bonkers. Every day I pick both of them up at school. I sit there and dance in the middle of the thing. So like I get them all excited, act like an idiot, and they go, "Dad's funny and Dad likes to have fun, and he pushes us to be our best selves." So at the end of the
Right.
day, like that comes to being a dad, and I'm not saying mothers can't do that because mothers work very, very hard. A lot of respect for mothers. If we're up to men to have babies, we don't have many babies. So it just goes both ways, play tandem, that both parents are good. But again, the father has an important role to play. And
Yeah.
absent fathers and families, it's just, and you can see the statistics, it's extremely detrimental to families and the children.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the mother would have to, she has to understand her role as both parents.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
sometimes, if she's not a whole person herself, if she's got a lot of her own
yep.
reservations or insecurities, or she's just had a rough time in her life, maybe she can't fulfill both those roles. But there are some
It's tough.
strong women out there that
Oh
can
yeah.
definitely do both.
God bless them.
Yeah.
It's
There's
tough.
another thing that I think that is really, really important, and that is courage.
Mm,
Fathers are the example of what it is to live a courageous life.
mhm,
And they are the ones, they're sort of like the Don Quixote. They're going to go out there and they're going to slay those windmills, and they're going to achieve the things that they want to do, and their children are watching them and saying,
mhm,
wow, Daddy is really strong. He is so
mhm,
brave. He fights for us.
mhm,
And by being that by being that example, you're teaching your children to have courage as well.
yep.
Every victory that you have, whether
Mhm,
it's a financial victory or a work-related victory or whatever it is, or even a health-related victory, everything that you do, it requires a certain amount of courage and determination.
mhm,
And you know, your children definitely see that, and they
for
need
sure.
to see that, you know. So
Mhm,
not only courage for the things that need to be overcome, but courage to kind of travel and to
mhm.
get outside. I mean, your kids are young right now, but there's
Outside of
going
their
to
comfort
come
zone.
a point
Mhm.
where they're going to want to see the world. And if they're afraid of the world
Mhm,
because someone taught them to be afraid, then they're kind of going to invite that into their lives. The things
mhm.
they need to be wary, they need to be smart, and I think they get that from their father. I really, really do.
I
Because
would like to definitely think so, especially being myself, I want to kind of take on that responsibility and teach them to not be afraid and get outside of their comfort zone without being dangerous about it. It's almost like
Right.
assessing the risks. So if I'm getting into any situation, my daughters watch me do this. I will assess every risk possible. Like, okay, if I do this, this, and this, what's going to happen? I don't just blindly jump into something and say, hope it works. Sometimes I
No,
find
right.
myself in that situation, but I don't really plan things out to the max, but I definitely assess which one I'm going to do. And I make sure my daughters say, like, hey, look, before we jump into this, let's see what we're about to do here. My kids will sit there with me, look at me, be like, if we do X, Y, and Z, that's not always running into a fire or a burning building or whatever it is.
Right.
Like I said, it could be financial courage, it could be just traveling the world courage, spiritual courage. It doesn't always have to be this courageous, I'm fighting dragons thing.
Right.
Sometimes it may be, but again, it sets the example of being confident in yourself. Set that confidence. Like if they see me going out and doing my thing, they see dad's confident. And I always want them to be like, well, if I could be like dad, and dad is
Right.
my almost savior, and he makes me feel safe, and he's always fighting for me, and he'll always be there for me. When they do something stupid, because kids do that, we all did, we all got in trouble. I don't want them to be afraid to come to me like, Dad, I effed up. I need your help.
Right.
I've dealt with kids when I was younger that got in so much trouble. They're afraid of their parents. They wouldn't go tell their parents what they did wrong, and they got screwed for it. My
Right.
parents raised me to trust them. That if they screw up, I'm going to be there to help them. But they better, like, I better know that there will be consequences after they help me. So I was trusted my parents, and I want my kids to always trust in me to not be afraid to come to me and say, "Hey, Dad, I fucked up. Come help me."
Right.
And I'll come help you. I might be pissed off, but I'm glad you came to me instead of killing yourself or whatever it may be. That doesn't even have to be that extreme. So it just goes to set an example, being proud of yourself and being able to admit when you've effed up and when you've done great.
You do want your children all their life to
Mhm.
constantly strive to be their very best.
Absolutely.
And in that striving to be your very best,
Hmm.
you are encouraging them, you are recognizing their victories, you are celebrating them.
Celebrate
And,
everyone.
everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has a couple of setbacks here and there. Nobody lives
Yep.
a perfectly charmed life because if you did, then you really would not appreciate when the good things happen. You have to have
Yep.
some kind of, life is like waves, you get your ups and downs the entire time. But it's,
Another good one. Somebody told me at this the other day is like you ever see when you're on a hooked up to a heart rate machine,
yeah,
life's like a heart rate. When it's going up and down, you know you're alive. When
yeah,
it's
that's
straight,
right.
you know it's not going well.
Right, right. So
So
it's,
somebody
it's
said that to me
just,
the other day. I was like, well,
it's important to know that they have you, that you have their back
mhm.
and that they can come to you and that you're a good role model for them, whether they're
That's
girls
my
or boys.
ultimate goal.
Yeah,
Ultimate goal.
right. I
Leave
mean,
the world a better place than I found it, and make sure that my kids end up better than I did.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, absolutely. I always feel like when I first had children, I
Mhm.
said, I want to be the best example for them. I'm not
Yep.
going to just tell them what I want them to do. I'm going to show them through my efforts. So, one thing
Yep.
that's always been very important to me is fitness. I've been
Mhm.
exercising for a long time, and I wanted all of my kids to grow up knowing and wanting to take care of their bodies. No excuse, no
Right.
excuse. Okay. So, instead of me trying to push them to do it, I just did it myself. And now here it is all
Mhm.
these years later,
I
and
do the
it's
same
paid
thing.
me very much. It's paid me
Yep.
back very, very well.
Mhm.
So I think that's also, I mean, maybe that's the paternal part of me, but I really believe that it's really important to set a good example
Right.
for your
I
kids
think both
because
parents can share a little bit of both roles when it comes to stuff like that. But again,
sure,
like you said, like fitness is definitely a big part of my life, and I built a gym in my basement, and I used to go down there every day and say, "Hey, girls, I'm gonna go work out. You want to come with me?" Yes, no, maybe so. They would come or they wouldn't. I'd start working out. My kids would grab stuff. They play with it, play around. Like, Dad, look at this. So when I go to the gym and I go down to my gym, they want to come. Another
right,
thing that's been very important to me after I got out of the military has been education. Before the military was kind of a screw up. I didn't really care about any of that stuff. I like to party, whatever it was. Still like to party, don't get me wrong. But education, ever since I got out of the military, has been extremely important to me. And so I said, my two daughters are extremely smart. When we're in the car, there's no TVs in there, no cell phones. We don't have tablets for them, nothing like that. Or I don't have tablets for them. I'm not with their mother, so I'm not sure what they do, but I'll speak for myself here.
Right.
I teach them math, or I teach them about outer space or science, or I'll ask them questions. Hey, what's 12 plus 15? They'll sit there, and I'll teach them how to work out problems, stuff like that.
Right.
I majored in chemistry, biology, and mathematics in school, so I'll teach them everything I know about that kind of stuff. And they love it. I come home sometimes, and my daughter will run to the TV. Instead of putting on YouTube, she'll put on a Netflix documentary about the world and Earth. And I sit there with her and I go, hey, look at this. And we'll go to the aquarium every weekend, or we'll go somewhere to the zoo every weekend. And my daughters will tell me facts about the animals that they're seeing. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Very
So
cool.
education and being intuitive with the world and connected to the world has always been important to me. And just showing them that I love it, they just kind of follow along. Like, I don't want to say little ducklings, but that's the way to put it. They're doing it their own way. They're choosing it themselves because they see how much it has affected me.
You know, you're being a really good example to your daughters, and by spending time with them, by not making them feel as if they are peripheral to your life, but a very important part of your life, they will always believe and know that daddy loves them, and that daddy's there for them, and that he is their guide. And you're not trying to live their life, but you definitely want to have an influence, and that a positive influence to help them to reach their best and highest goals. Because a lot of people, they're given information, especially, you know, if you're listening to fathers who are insecure for whatever reason. Oh, you can't do this, and who do you think you are, and you can't do that. And if you feed your kids negative suggestions or information, they grow up thinking that they're not deserving.
Detrimental self-esteem. Yep, detrimental self-esteem. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Quick example of that, if you don't mind me jumping in.
No, go ahead.
So I was at the Jersey Shore outlet center with my kids, and we were playing on this little playground area. And Paige, my little one, was like, "Dad, I can't climb up on this." I said, "Try." "No, I can't." I was like, "Not with that attitude, you can't try." And the parents are looking at me like, "Why don't you go help this kid?" I'm like, "No, try." Because the other parents were like, "Oh, little Johnny, come here." I know, try, Paige. See if you can figure it out. I was like, "Hey, let's work through this together. What happens if you put your foot here?" So she tried it and she got it. "Dad, look, I did it." I said, "See, like sometimes you got to try. Don't be afraid to fail. Because sometimes if you do fail, it's just a way to you just kind of learn how to not do something." That's the kind of way I've always looked at stuff. If I failed something, I just realized, okay, don't do it that way. Let's try a different way.
Right.
So again, didn't mean to cut you out, but I was just like perfect example
No.
of
It's
push
very,
them to try to figure it out.
Right. And, you know, I think that it's seriously important that, you know, right now, your kids are very young, and right now they're in that magical genius stage where their potential is off the hook. And the way that their minds are growing, and their belief systems, and the way that they are wanting to learn, it all depends on the kind of feedback that their father gives them. And if their father gives them, "I believe in you, and all I want you to do is try. I'll love you whether you fail at it or whether you are successful, but I'll love you either way. I just want you to try." And I think that each one of those moments is important, because each one of them is stored in the back of that child's mind. But daddy believes in me, and I know I can do this.
I've always thought about that with my dad, and I apply it to the way I raise my kids. So yeah, absolutely, it's stored. So you see, it just comes back tenfold how you're raised, and passed on and passed on and passed on. You definitely learn from some of your parents' mistakes, and then your own mistakes, and it just makes the next generation better than the last.
Right.
At least that's what we hope.
I think this was a wonderful conversation. I think that we hit a lot of very important points. And I hope that anybody who is listening and who is going to consider becoming a father,
it was the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Right?
Become a dad. I've been called many things in my life, but dad is the absolute best.
That's
absolute
great.
best.
That's great. Well, if you are happy to be a father and willing to take on the responsibility of fatherhood, because it is a big responsibility. I mean,
Huge.
those kids are your kids forever. It's not like, oh,
Thank
they're
God.
18 and now they're not your kids
No.
anymore. They're
Mhm.
always going to be your kids. And the older they get, the more they have their own minds. So now it's a balancing act between what you see for them and what they see for themselves. And
Yep.
hopefully, what they see for themselves is that they want to and believe in themselves to rise to their potential, that they're not willing to settle for something that they don't want to do. And that's
Right.
what corporate America is full of. All those desks that are,
Yep.
people are filling, and whether you work for Amazon or whatever, they've got lots and lots of people who do not believe that they can do anything else. So they just get
Right.
this little job and they just sit there behind that desk and they earn their paycheck and they hope, they wish for Friday.
Yep.
I think that parents, especially fathers, are so important in instilling self-respect,
Mhm.
trust in oneself, belief in oneself, and courage. And I
Oh, yeah.
think that
I could definitely agree with that.
right, and I think that it's a super important role that if you do embrace it, it is one of the
It's
most
the best thing in the world.
rewarding
It is.
experiences, right?
It is. I light up when I talk about my kids. I swear to God.
Right.
So literally, it's the best thing ever. Like I can't. I know father, like I said, is a huge responsibility. But I look at my girls and I think about my son on the way, and I can't imagine not being around and being in these kids' lives. And I can't fathom how my fathers especially just abandon their children. It blows my mind. It's the best thing in the world. I could
Yeah.
have the shittiest day on planet Earth. I walk in that door, Daddy, it's all gone. It is all gone. So kids, especially your own, are the only ones that'll take that away, and that feeling. They'll give you that feeling of absolute unconditional love. We've all been in love before, but you'll never love anything like you love your kids. I would
Absolutely.
I would do some crazy shit to protect those kids. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Law Abiding Citizen, but
Yeah.
if anybody harmed my family or my children, I would do crazier stuff than that.
Right. Right.
So those girls are my everything,
I
and
know.
my son will be up there too, and he's here too.
Right.
So
I know. I
God willing,
know. I know that, you just love being a dad,
I
and
do.
it shows. It really, really,
I
really
do.
does show. And so I think because you do love being a dad, you take it very seriously. I mean, you're having your
Oh
fun.
yeah.
And I
Hmm.
think that's part of being a father, is being able to
Absolutely.
have fun, because
Showing
if
them
you're
that nice
just
balance.
strict,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, it's about balance. That's right. Because if you're just the disciplinarian, if you're
Hmm.
just the one who, doles out punishments or whatever, then you're not the person that they're going to feel
Nope.
comfortable with or trust.
Mhm.
So you have to have a nice balance between,
Yep.
listen, I want good things for you, but there's a certain amount that you have to put into this too.
We can have some fun, but we got a job to do. But like my daughters and I, we play pranks on each other.
Do you?
We go and learn things. Oh yeah, absolutely. My kids will come do the dumbest things to me, and they go, "Oh, Dad, it's just a prank." Yeah. So we joke around, we laugh. I got to make sure they can laugh, have a good time. You know me, I'm a ball buster. My young one, Paige, the guy is more like me, ball buster. Kristen's a
Oh,
little bit more
good.
serious, but she's still funny. She has her moments where she's funny, but she's a little bit more serious sometimes. But it's good to see that they can have fun. They can also be great students. I get compliments from their teachers all the time. Your kids are so well behaved. They're so well behaved,
Nice.
and I love that because they're animals inside of the house. And I
Yes,
think that's
well,
the best. That is the best thing to have is your kids in public.
right.
They're squared away, doing the right thing, and then when they get home, they can act like idiots, and that's
But
okay.
they can let loose. They can
Because
let their
then they
hair
see their
down.
dad. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't have to worry about impressing anybody.
Yep.
When they're
Mhm.
outside and they're with
Mhm.
you, they're sort of a reflection of you and
Oh,
whether or
amen.
not you've paid any attention to them.
Mhm.
So, children act out in public because there's lots of reasons, but
Attention.
they're
Attention is
going to
number
get
one.
lots of attention outside. And so if they're
Attention
not
is number
getting
one.
it inside, they're going to try to get it someplace else. So when a child
Absolutely.
behaves, outside in the world, it most definitely is a reflection of a father's
Codependency is very
care.
important in a child's early life too. Just being there with you, so they can feel that love and know that they are loved. and
Right.
reflect that love on everybody else that they encounter.
I
And that's
think
passed
this
down from
was
day one.
I think this was a wonderful conversation. I want to
It always
thank you
is. It always
so
is.
much. We'll
My
talk
pleasure.
again. And
Absolutely.
I just really, really appreciate you. Thank you for being a guest. It was so
My
much
pleasure. I
fun
love it.
talking to you.
Yeah.
And we'll talk
This is
again.
definitely one of our more serious talks, but definitely still fun. I love it. I look forward to being on.
But it was an important talk.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I
I
think
agree.
fathers need to know, especially young men who are thinking about becoming fathers.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not just donating some sperm and walking away. This is a
That's the fun
lifetime
part.
commitment, you know?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. That's
yeah,
the best part.
yeah.
There's the fun part and the best part, but it's all great, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Nice,
Nothing.
nice.
So thank you again for having me. I love talking, obviously. So
Thank you for joining me.
thank you again. My
And I'll
pleasure.
talk to you again soon, okay?
Definitely will.
All right, Mike. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
You as well. Enjoy.
All right, bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I think it's really important to understand that fathers are super important, and fatherly love is a super important element. And it's not just a moment in time, it is a nurturing, a guidance for a lifetime. And if you have it in you to grow and to help others grow, then fatherly love is something that you can share with your offspring. So I hope you found this fun and interesting. Please join me again next week for another episode of Your Pleasure Incorporated into Daily Living. This is your host, Ellen Nicholas Rathbone. Please do your Kegels, and namaste, everybody. Love you all. Have a great night. Bye for now.